to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming tonight. I would have thought everyone would be making cookies or doing other things that I have not even started yet, but that'll happen. There are no visitors who have signed in wishing to speak. I just did want to mention that one of our Amherst family passed away this Sunday night. Larry Versassi was a teacher at the middle school. He was a seventh grade social studies teacher. And he really gave his all to the students, 100%. And the students gave it back to him too. I know more than a few students who actually had more than 100% on their grades, because even if they didn't need to, they were so engaged by him. They did many, many extra credit projects, which is really, I think, says a lot about how he really touched our children. And not only our children, but also our faculty. He was sick for a year and a half on health leave, and just learned today that our Amherst Middle School family kept in contact with him and sent him cards and made phone calls on a daily basis to let him know he is part of our family. And so if we could all give a moment of reflection on Mr. Versathi's passing. As I mentioned earlier, it is the middle of December and we're counting the days, whether it's till the end of the year or till Christmas and Santa comes or whatever. We are counting our days till you're not leaving us, and it's coming quickly. And we will definitely be missing you. But I wanted to introduce, in the meantime, while we're looking for our future superintendent, Dr. Bruce Frazier has agreed to be our interim. He comes to us with a long list of accomplishments. He was superintendent of the Lockport schools, and then after retirement has been an interim at Medina, Iroquois, and most recently Newfane. So we welcome you and we look forward to having you join us officially February 1st.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any board committees to report?
Transportation Committee met and reconvened and are looking at exploring some other options that we may want to revisit and explore going forward with the extreme hike in the transportation contract. So we're looking at some efficiencies, routing efficiencies and things like that. So we're starting to do some initial brainstorming about things that rocks we may not have turned over yet. So we'll be working on some things and meeting again in January, so more to come.
Thank you. Any other committees meeting?
Well, our advocacy group, which is something Dominic put together, where we have some representatives from the board in Williamsville, some representatives from the board in Sweet Home, and 3 of us from Amherst. And basically our initial meeting was very empowering. We sat down with some people who sit on legislative committees, and obviously Williamsville is a larger district than ours, and we walked away from there just thinking that with the 3 of us working together, seemed to be a sweet spot of size, because it's gotten to the point where the Erie County School Boards Association feels like they've lost a little bit of power, because they walk into a politician and the politician spits back to them, I know you're going to say this, that, and the other thing. What else you got? And so it's become a little bit of white noise, and maybe the way to go now is a little more grassroots efforts. And so we were brainstorming ways that we can empower our people, and you know, along the lines of the meeting we did last year in February, and will be coming up again February 27th this year, giving our constituents the tools to advocate for our, you know, for our districts, and working together to find ways to do that. So we are gonna meet again, and we're all looking forward to January 13th is when the state of the state and the budget come out together. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent, great.
Good initial meeting.
That's great. Good to hear.
All right, we'll move right on to our report. We have two items tonight. The first one is a capital project update. And we have Jerry here and Carlo here just to kind of tell you where we are, and I'll turn it over to you. And if you have anything you want to add. So I don't know who's.
Just thank you to the community for your support for the WIC project, passed 4-1. So thank you to everyone that came out and took the time to vote. But, and they'll include some of the schedule regarding that particular part of the project, this evening as well.
All right, just give you a quick update. We had a successful year, obviously, as everyone knows, between phase 2 and 3. We're in the closeout process right now, we're wrapping up warranty items, loose ends, and punch list items. And the only two major components we have left to do really is over the next fall and March break, which has to do with some power requirements from National Grid that we'll be doing at the high school and over at Smallwood, Windermere, some minor switchgear work. Other than that, really, we're just getting ready for phase 4, which I'll turn it over to Jerry.
Phase 4, basically we're ready with the drawings right now. We're planning on issuing them out to bid tomorrow, 3 p.m. We'll do a pre-bid walkthrough with some of the bidders and contractors to kind of make sure that they understand the full scope on January 7th of 2016, and then bid openings we're planning for January 20th. Hopefully have enough time to kind of go through their scope, make sure that everybody's good, and then provide you with a recommendation before your February 2nd board meeting. So that's our plan.
And everybody remembers that we can do this because this work was approved by the state. And then it was approved by the voters, so we're ready to go, and we're gonna go out to bid immediately.
Can you refresh me on the timeline is, that we're gonna be working on this in the summer? Is that right?
Yes, correct.
That and then finishing up some of the other work from the last project. Maybe you can do a quick overview of some of the things
Oh,
that.
sorry, that's right. So Smallwood, basically, we have a small portion of windows left. I believe we got about 10 or 11 windows left along the Smallwood Drive side that's going to be replaced over summer. So that's really the extent of what's left to do at Smallwood. And that'll complete Smallwood 100%. Building envelope will be complete at that point. That alongside with the phase 4 that Jim's talking about will be the same summer.
Right.
A lot of work. And then you can begin to think about what you wanna do in the next couple of years related to the building condition survey, and then the high school that we toured, and I think a couple of meetings ago, we talked about maybe kind of letting this happen and sort of pacing that a little bit different, and waiting until we have a couple of people hired to sort of have that discussion about their vision as well. So there's plenty of work to be done though in the next 6 or 7
Right,
months.
and it's important to be known that we're not doing this just to keep construction going. We really do need to really work on some real issues,
Absolutely.
particularly at the high school.
Absolutely.
There's some real needs.
I think it's important to note from the high school that there is still interior damage from some of the elements that still hasn't been, addressed. You had to fix the envelope first before we can fix the interior up, so there's definitely visible stuff there, so.
Any questions for anybody or not? All right.
We'd love to stay for the alternative fundings.
Oh, this might be the last time you get to see me.
Oh, no, we'll be back.
This could be our last presentation.
And I imagine there's gonna be a few.
We can find a few more for you.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay, what I wanted to do is, I just wanted to bring you up to speed where we are with the Alternative Funding Committee. It's been a few months and as you know, there's been some changes, so we'll scroll down. I just want to show you sort of the updated committee. It's several of the same people, but one thing that will be changing, and this is public information, is that Susan Smith has now stepped in for Lynn Ramsey. Lynn is relocating with her family. Her husband has gotten a new job, and so she'll be leaving the area. And so Sue is now the newly elected alumni president. So that's been one of the major changes. And you also know that we no longer have a coordinator, and that's a position that we'll continue to evaluate in terms of the need. The Show Us Your Stripes event, as you know, has been one of our biggest fundraisers, and I'm really pleased to say that this year, this was probably the most successful year for this fundraiser, and it was truly because of the work from the members of the committee. At that point, we did not have a coordinator, and so we decided as a committee that we would each take a core of this responsibility to make sure that things would happen and that this would continue to be a success. So you see, that was the structure. We divided things up. We did decorations and raffles and tickets and venues, and we looked for volunteers. And that was really us, as well as some other outside individuals who stepped up and helped us to coordinate some of those efforts. Our primary revenue came in through ticket sales. We did a 50-50. We had some basket raffles. If you were there, we had a silent auction. But truly, one of the greatest components was our vendor and corporate sponsors. This year, as a committee, really with the help of Mrs. Conley and Mr. Weil and a few other of us, we really dug deep to some of our vendors and some corporate folks and got some really significant sponsors through that, and it generated a lot of funds for us, more than we've ever had in the past. We ended up raising about $10,500 when it was all said and done, and that's by far the most that we've ever made on this event. And we were very pleased with that. And of that, the way it was designed, if certain teams sold tickets, they got a percentage of that money back. And so they were very instrumental in helping us sell tickets, and consequently, they got $1,260 that was distributed back to the athletic teams above and beyond that. So it was a very, very successful event. Some things we already distributed, and I'll show you the application process. We did have some requests for some things. The high school, we needed a new blocking sled at the cost of $3,000. They had gone through the process and it went through and we were able to buy that, and we needed some new hockey gloves. Smallwood is instituting a new community time, and they had requested some funding. We weren't able to fully fund it, but we were able to at least give them $1,000 towards that. And the same thing with the high school orchestra trip. They were short a little bit on being able to fund that trip, and so we were able to support some of that because of the money that we raised. Quite honestly, prior to that, the committee didn't raise anywhere near the money that we wanted to, so there were limited kind of resources back.
And I think it's important to point out too that because of the later school start and the earlier date of the event, that there was less time for the teams to sell and the PTAs to sell, so, you know, that, it could have even been better.
It could have been even better, yeah. There were a lot of factors that were kind of working against us, quite honestly, but just really through a lot of hard work of just volunteers stepping up and wanting to make this successful, it ended up being a success. Now that we're in a situation where we're hoping to continue to make money, we had designed an application process and we will make this more public again. But again, quite honestly, we didn't have a whole lot of funds to distribute, but it's very specific. You go through the process, they're submitted through the Alumni Foundation, but it also comes to the committee, so that as a school, I can help to identify what some of the needs are in working with our administration, so that we can distribute those funds. And then ultimately, the Board of Education, when they receive funds, always has to approve the receipt of those funds, because it still all goes through the Alumni Foundation. Where we are with the coordinator status. Originally, we had hired a coordinator and we paid $10,000, and the Alumni Foundation paid $10,000. Part of the responsibilities that were developed was a mailing system, where there were mailings that went out twice a year in hopes of getting donations back to the school. These did not end up making as much money as we thought they were going to. Also things like just calling businesses, soliciting some local alumni who had businesses, things like that. That individual was responsible for organizing the Stripes event and also coordinated the Alternative Funding Committee meetings and prepared the agenda. Once she was done, I took over that role. I was coordinating the meetings and setting the agenda and pulling everybody together. What we talked about at the last meeting is perhaps we don't actually need a coordinator at this point unless we redesign the job description, because the mailings really didn't prove to be beneficial and profitable. So to go through all of that and spend the money, there has to be other ways in which that we can find ways to get fundings. So what we talked about, a couple things, was perhaps what we might want to do is hire somebody more on an individual basis for specific projects. So for example, when we do the stripes or other fundraising, perhaps we just hire somebody who specializes in this and decide on an amount that we think is reasonable to pay that individual back for their time. We did it this year, but truthfully, it was really time consuming. Debbie did a lot of the work, I did quite a bit, I know that Melanie and Mark did, Lori, we all did, and we were fine doing it, but I think to sustain that, we might wanna consider doing something like that. We may wanna look again at the idea of focusing on somebody who's more involved with grants and grant writing, and that becomes their area of expertise, and put our money there in return for soliciting and being able to get some grants. Right now, it's the superintendent and the alumni president that has overseen the process, that coordinates the meetings that people are answering to. So down the road, I think that that's gonna have to be something that's revisited in terms of the structure of how that will work and how we might wanna move forward. But we do know for sure, we do wanna do a stripes event again. Also Dr. Ill, quite honestly, Kyle, I don't wanna leave him out, he was incredibly helpful. And he's already said he'll kind of get the ball rolling right now to make sure we're getting the tickets, getting things out, so we can really capitalize on our sporting teams, our winter sports and our spring sports. So I'm sure with his assistance and with everybody else's assistance, we'll be able to get things going, but that would be something we wanna make sure we maintain. The bottom line is, although the structure that we established might not have been as successful as we thought, the committee in general was extremely successful, because what ended up happening, really our primary goal was that the district and the Alumni Foundation enhance their relationships and look for ways in which that we can continue to raise funds together, and not only tapping into the same alumni that have always been giving, but look at other ways of tapping into some sources. And we feel really, really pleased with the fact that it only strengthened our relationship. We've always had a wonderful relationship with the Alumni Foundation, and now it's even stronger. And so, upon my departure, I would still encourage that this committee continue, that you continue to create a structure that you think would be beneficial to continue to increase funds to schools, to our schools, and it's been a great, great relationship that we hope to continue to have, so.
Question, Dr. Shavy, is there a process in place where we identify incoming families, young families? I know my son lives in Smallwood, and he has a lot of friends that are late 30s, early 40s, and a lot of them own businesses, a lot of them have substantial jobs, and is there any way to identify those folks that moved into Snyder and Wethersfield?
I would think there is.
A new source of perhaps, these
Yeah.
personal connections?
I think that's a great thought. Those are the kinds of things, quite honestly, we were hoping for. So I don't have the answers of how you tap into that, but I think when we're talking about to continue with a coordinator or somebody who's hired to do specific types of work, that's a great way in which we can reach out, whether it's through the Alumni Foundation or through this individual, to really reach out to some of these individuals to tap into that.
Be too small to Windermere or wherever.
Absolutely.
But I know Christ the King and St. Benedict's, of course, they have they're a tight knit group already. They identify these folks pretty quickly,
Right,
like
exactly.
Catholic Charities, if that was a part of it. Christ the King is, there's always people
Yeah.
identified and that they go to and call and, put their
That was
word
the
on.
original vision.
For lack of a better word,
Yeah. That really was the
Yeah.
original vision, was to be able to reach out to other families and people in the community outside of those that were just listed from the Alumni Foundation. That was really our initial goal when we established the
You
committee.
broaden your bases.
And so to broaden your
That's what I'm
bases,
saying.
exactly, and start tapping into other sources to help fund some of these things. So I think that's something that's still untapped, and we probably still have a lot to learn, so I think that would be a great question to ask the next individual that we might consider. How might they do that? What would be some suggestions of how we might do that?
So, Dr. Elg is going to start things with the athletic teams.
Correct.
But in regards to who's going to be taking the lead next year, is going to be doing that as well. I know the comment was that perhaps we would hire someone for specific events.
The
But-
committee hasn't decided totally, the alumni committee, the alternative funding committee who would be that individual. A decision is gonna have to be made. If they wanna hire somebody, obviously they're gonna need to do that relatively quickly, so that they can start the ball rolling. But one thing that we know, because this is our third year in, third or fourth,
Right.
we already, I mean, we have a pretty good base, like, Tom Thielman's on the committee, he's always helped with the tickets and things like that, so he's already stepped up and said, just get me the date, and I can get that ball rolling. You know, those kinds of things, so we've already started to plant the seeds, so that those things can happen.
That's what she was referring to with Dr. Ill, that we've already set the date for next year, so we can start that initial planning
Correct.
process and get the ball rolling.
Get the tickets done earlier.
Right.
And then beyond that, you know, the committee is gonna have to decide, do they want to just use members of the committee to plan and organize and sort of set the event?
Get
Or-
donations and,
yeah, or
there's
is it-
all those
Is there a,
details.
is there a timeline though?
There is not a timeline yet, no. The only thing is, I think, what Kyle had to do was wait until he could find out when sports were gonna be, get an idea of when sports were happening in the fall.
Right.
Because usually we try to coordinate it with homecoming, if we can.
We were gonna,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
there's-
but we had come to the conclusion that we're just gonna get a date and make sure we at least have a home game.
Right.
We can ask to at least have a home game on that date.
I was just asking because sometimes if there's nobody who's going to be here, it could very easily,
Yeah, well, I think it'll be up to, you know, the new superintendent, if that person is gonna be leading this committee with the Alumni Foundation
And then
president.
to make that decision, do you wanna do it like we did it and have everybody just take on a role? Or do you want to solicit interest for somebody who specializes in these kinds of event planning and come up with what would be a reasonable rate and make that happen? We can't do a whole lot much before February or March, quite honestly, and you can start to talk about selling tickets and getting tickets out there, but that's so far away. People aren't really thinking about it.
no, I just meant in terms of, it'll be May
It'll
or
come
June
up fast.
before you
You're
know
absolutely right.
if there's someone who's not the lead.
That's right.
That's all
You're
I was
absolutely right.
commenting.
Yeah, we ran into that.
'Cause there-
And I think that she was saying that in a very classy way.
Yeah.
I'm out, but, you know. it's hard.
That's what she thinks.
I'm a coordinator.
Perhaps she should call her out on that.
It was a great event, so we look forward to it. We'll make sure we communicate with the board too about the direction that we're gonna go. But again,
We
it's
won't
been a
lose
great,
it.
it's been a great relationship and a great committee to work on. I'm really pleased with the work we've been able to do and the exposure that the
And you'll come
district has
back for the
had.
events every year.
Absolutely. We'll miss it, so. All right.
This is,
I know, record time here, huh?
Dave's stuff.
Thank you.
Before
Well,
7:30,
it's a little slow.
7:22. Ready to go on to new business. Okay, is there a, would you like to make a motion for new business?
I'll make a motion for new business items G1, A through Q, 2, A through I, 3, C, D, G, I, and J.
I would like to second that.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of items G1A through G2A through I, and G3C, D, G, I, and J, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. This is so fast, I don't know. Okay, are there any visitors wishing to speak at this time? Any follow-up action items? This is a strange meeting.
It's a holiday season. It's a little gift to everybody.
Okay, anything that, anyone thinks that we need to put on a future agenda? And with that, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Pupela?
And I'll second.
All those in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much, and have a very nice evening.
Have a great holiday.